had this problem when I was in Houston. There is a Catholic church that's located in downtown Houston. It's down the street from another church that's not Catholic. It's part of the co-diocese of Houston and Galveston. As you walk up the front of the church in order to enter, there is a stone, a cornerstone on one side, and then there is engraving in the stone that is in the foyer, the entryway into the church. Both of them have different quotations from the book of Isaiah. I've entered that church once. I entered that church in December of 2016. Why? Because I'd actually gone to the church down the street. I'd gone there first, and after attempting to participate in the ceremony at the time, it was not appropriate for me. So I left, and as I left, it was almost as a spiritual question. Where would you prefer to be? I said, well, let me enter into here and see what I see. At the time, I did not really readily read the words. I wasn't reading text. It's not what was going on. I entered the church. It was before service. I looked at the area. I walked down the center of the aisle to the front of the church, and at the front of the church there was what there was. I ascended the steps and I went up onto the area where the altar was, the primary altar that was looking out to the people. And I went behind it, and I stood behind the altar, and I'm looking out at the parish. There weren't many people there. It was before the ceremony. It was maybe 20 minutes before the ceremony was to start. My understanding is the ceremony that day, at that time, was supposed to be in Vietnamese. And I remember standing there, and I was standing on the left side, and I said to myself, something's missing. I'm supposed to be here, but there's supposed to be somebody with me. Now, not so ironically, off to the right, down the stairs, standing in front of the area where the altar was a man. It was a Vietnamese man. And he didn't seem to be disturbed, but he also did not come up at the time. My understanding was that he understood, at least, what was happening. He wasn't disturbed, wasn't out of character, wasn't alarming. So I said, this is what it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be someone here with me, though. Where is he? This was the implication. This was the understanding. The fact that it was a Catholic church, well, that came later, right? That's when I saw what was written in the stones, what they had engraved, what they wanted to be the verses they consecrated that building with. Why I never returned and entered that building again. Sometime after that, in February, around the time of the Super Bowl, there was a setup that happened around where the event was to occur. It was one of the most disturbing things I'd ever seen. But the truth of the matter is I had a premonition of it. I had a premonition of it in the autumn of 2015. You see, I was working at a catering company, and I was supposed to go cater an event in the Bay Area. I was supposed to work it for 3 days. I didn't make it on either day. On the second day, I tried to go. I could have potentially been there on time, but I just couldn't get off the train at the correct stop. My internal calibration did not want me to go. Something did not want me to go to that event. And what happened instead on the second day is I got off the train and I went to a coffee shop. And this woman came up to speak to me. If you were to listen to what she said, you'd probably think it was complete nonsense. You wouldn't understand it at all. But what she described is exactly what I saw in Houston. Now, there were a couple of areas at that time, and on 3 different street corners on the day before the Super Bowl, there were street preachers. All 3 of them were reciting the same aspects from the book of Isaiah. You know, the warning about iniquity, about what could be done in order to purge you, cast you out for your sin. You know, the problem is that prior to that, all over the city, well, people wanted people to enjoy themselves. And they had a very specific setup that day. Not everybody that intended to enjoy themselves at the Super Bowl was privy to the engagements contrived on the street, so to speak, for the majority. There were other entrances, there were other areas, there were other ways to participate, even as a spectator in the event. It did not require you to walk by those church preachers and hear what they were saying. In one of those groups, I went up to them. It was a young man and 4 women with him. And I said, "Have you read the whole book? Do you see where you are and who you're among and what you're saying?" He looked at me, but then he just kept reciting. I did what I did the rest of the time. I went through the maze myself. I learned some things. I did not return at that point in time. But I bring this up because this is where I had the experience of what I've called since then the Isaiah scam. See, it would be different if I didn't have a previous relationship with the book of Isaiah, including the relationship with the book of Isaiah and a holy site. It's very different. And at the time, this was occurring. It was in this sort of phase where there was a political transformation, but in terms of the actual material conditions of the bounding of the spaces of concern, there really hadn't been a transition, at least not at the time. Why do I bring this up? It would seem that I have neglected to have a specific kind of consideration of the role of Mary of Magdala, since I have attempted to honor her, and honor myself as her, and potentially honor other people insofar as they have embodied her as well. When I was in Honduras in the summer of 2015, I read the encyclical that was written at the time by Pope Francis. I read it in a situation that may not have seemed very conventional. I was supposed to be doing something else. It might seem kind of strange, somebody just sitting there in the middle of this kind of a circumstance reading a Pope's encyclical. But I did. And after I did, I wrote something in Spanish. It happened to be something that I composed around the anniversary of the day that in some cultures celebrates the day of Mary of Magdala, which is in July. And I wrote specifically about the complementarity of particular kinds of political paradigms, including ones with a material foundation and the need for faith, and how the two are really very important for each other, because a political paradigm that is explicitly and exclusively materialist lacks a certain kind of spiritual dimension that not only helps sustain intergenerationality, but also provides a sort of fortification for understanding the consequences of actions beyond one's own lifetime. This is kind of how I summed it up. It was in Spanish. It was pretty good Spanish. It wasn't so bad. I don't have that anymore. But my understanding is that Mary is not meant to be passive. Mary is not meant to be owned. And the understanding of Mary as an intimate woman and as a sensual woman, including as an object of desire or one who herself desires, it's not something that, to me, has seemed as imperative, important, or as necessary to acknowledge primarily until there are other kinds of acknowledgments. That intimacy is profound. The passion, all of the emotions, if she can sit with wrath, what do you think she can do with passion? But if you are not willing to sit with her in wrath, you cannot handle her passion. Would you seek to try to take it by force from her? What do you think the consequences are going to be when Jesus finds out? When Thomas finds out? When Andrew finds out? When Simon finds out? What do you think Mary is going to do when she finds out what you tried to do when you cornered Simon? When you cornered Jesus? When you cornered Thomas? When you tried to portray Judas as something much cheaper than you want credit for yourself? This is the problem I have. I think there are those that would prefer if I understand perhaps their experience of embodying the Mary of Magdala has to do with understanding that in the conditions she was in, especially during a time frame when there were specific kinds of relationships between men and women that were expected, that she might have had to do things The whole understanding of the exploration and attempt at explication of expiation based on the myth of her as a prostitute that was redeemed when she became in ministry with Jesus. The truth of the matter is, until I am in the presence of the Peter, my Thomas, my Jesus, my Andrew, my Simon, they never ever put that forth. That's not who I am to them, and that's not who they are to me. It is somebody else that wants to see them make me into that for him. So my challenge is actually figuring out, well, who was that man? Who was the man that would try to get Simon, or Peter, or Thomas, or Andrew, or even Jesus himself to make me into the whore? And it's an ironic thing because I have a very difficult time actually functionally, literally seeing anybody else as a whore unless they declare themselves to be a whore. And then we've got a problem, right? Because then I say, you're an imposter. You're not really Mary. You're the church. And it's very different. I take crucifixion very seriously. I take the understanding that it would threaten me or my people very seriously. I take the fact that I've had to bear witness to it and feel it in my own body very seriously. I don't play games like somehow being a hooker is supposed to be cathartic. There's a period of time we're having fun and innocence in some sort of extreme exploration of all the things our bodies are capable of doing, including when we have hormones involved, including when we might have some sort of other kinds of sensual stimulation. It gets our body all excited, our imagination going. We're attracted to something. It might seem exotic. It might seem like home, even a temporary respite on our way. All of those things are amazing and beautiful. But what do you do when they seek to come in and take that from you or use it against you? Right? You're not one of us. Your God is not our God. Are you going to crucify me again? Are you going to prance him through the middle of the streets naked while your sadists flay his flesh and get hard on the scent of his blood? It happens. It's an important thing to know. How many of those Roman soldiers got a hard-on while they were beating Jesus? Yes, that's why you want me to see you as Mary. Because if I see you as Mary, then I'll make an excuse for you being her persecutor, being her John. And ultimately what you want is to be her pimp. You want to be the one that can command her brothers to turn her into the whore. And I don't acknowledge you. I mean, I know you exist. It would be wrong for me to say you don't exist, but you don't have a right to exist. It's not a right. It's an abomination. I have been in struggle against it for at least 2,000 years. You haven't done anything to change my mind.